I am Matt Bell. I'm the director of the SC Launch Program at SCRA, and I am pleased to have these two gentlemen up here today to talk about the Accelerate portion of the entrepreneurial journey. As you know, we're working our way through kind of the different stages of entrepreneurism, and this one focuses upon kind of that product market fit. I call it the bookstore portion of the presentation, because you could probably walk into Barnes & Noble and find an entire section devoted to just this section of the entrepreneurial journey. So with that, I'm going to have AJ, if you don't mind, just quickly give a background on yourself and Sprockets.
Well, thanks for having me out today. Really appreciate it. Sprockets is a Charleston-based company. We're a SaaS platform that helps brands like Hilton Hotels, McDonald's, and Chick-fil-A hire their next great crew member. We've been around for a few years now. We've raised roughly $15 million in venture capital, have good growth, and a lot of that is credit to SCRA, which was one of our very first checks. So thank you for the support, and looking forward to the discussion here today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kendrick Pullen. I am the co-founder of LifeTagger. We are a Charleston-based SaaS company as well. And LifeTagger helps customers and businesses and brands strengthen their customer and audience engagement through the use of proximity. And so we have been slowly growing, increasing revenue, increasing customers, and really excited about our growth and continuing to build our team. SCRA was one of our first checks as well, so we do really appreciate that, and really appreciate the coaching that we got on the fundraising side on how to build a better deck so that we could go and pursue more funding.
Well, I thought I'd start us off. These are two very smart gentlemen, and seemed appropriate to do a quick IQ test.
Oh boy.
I'm ready.
So real quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being complete and utter success, and I'm now raking in the cash with it, and 1 being a complete fiery mess, and I picked it up off the workbench and threw it in the garbage can. For your beta product, or for your either your alpha or your beta product, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as whether that product is the one you went to market with, or whether you threw that thing away and started over again?
In my mind, obviously I was a 10. That it was what we built was exactly what people needed, but in reality, probably was a 2. Yeah, like so the premise was great. What we wanted to do was find a way for businesses and brands to communicate with people more effectively. And we thought that was through a mobile app. And so we created this mobile app, and you could send a message, and when you got to a location, you would get that message. And we thought that was going to be really smart and really trendy, and that people would pick it up. And what we realized really fast, we had built something that we loved, but we had built something that nobody was willing to pay for. And so that was the first, like, oh wow, like this is not doing what we thought it would do, because no one is trying to pay us to use this. And so that way we went back to the drawing board, and we really started thinking about how do we talk to our customers, how do we talk to people, and then build something that people are actually going to pay for.
Yeah, I had a different experience. I'm on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. I'd say mine was a 1 or a 0. So my view on Sprockets and just technology companies in general is always kind of ship whatever version you have right now, get aggressive with customer discovery and customer feedback, and iterate, and iterate. Because I think I ran into challenges on another project where I built like this magnificent product, or I thought it was. My friends and I thought it was amazing. It was going to solve all of our challenges. Brought to market, you couldn't get anybody to pay for it. And so with Sprockets, we sold a SaaS platform, but in reality, it was just spreadsheets on the back end with us at nights trying to complete all of the calculations that we were promising to our customers. So it was very much sales focused to identify what our true ICP was, which is ideal customer profile, and then iterate the platform to be able to match it, and then progress with the customer as they got to explore different things within the Sprockets platform.
Yeah, and I think my team is right now going through the Lean Startup Model book, which is one way of looking at this space, but what you're talking about is very much preached in that book of the iteration process. So let me hit you with some individual questions. because you're coming at it from a little different directions. Kendrick, for your product development and your iteration, how are you going about the process of going from a 2 to an 8 and starting to understand what does the market want me to do, and how do I develop the product so it's aligned with my customer base? Do you have some experiences or some things you can talk about there?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting from 2 to 8, and I'll say we're probably at a 6 right now, but I think AJ was mentioning some of this stuff. It's one thing that we preach in our company now is product-led growth, right? Like product-led growth. That's all we talk about. We try to make that a mantra about letting our customers inform us of the things that we need to build and what we don't need to build, and what we can improve on, what they like. And I think for us, what we started to do was finding things that our customers liked, and then making those things better so that their experience is better on the things that they like, and then slowly adding in things that they're asking for. And then always just being very strategic about how you kind of roadmap that process. I tell people all the time, like, we really had to take our egos out of it as a team. Like, you take your ego out of what you're building, because you always have these ideas of what you think is the next best thing or the best thing, and you got to really take your ego out of it and really focus in on listening to the customers. And I think you mentioned your ideal customer profile. For us too, it was, we needed to we have a tool that basically the only limitation, I say this all the time, the only limitation with LifeTagger is what our customers imagine. So that always would pull us into a whole bunch of different directions on what we were trying to build, what we thought was cool, or what we should be building. And we just really had to narrow our focus and say, like, hey, we want to focus in on this market. We're going to build tools for these particular customers. And we focused in on hospitality, restaurant, and tourism. And we got a lot of market share there. And then we moved into smart cities, like just natural progressions. And then finally, our latest product launch from our platform is going to be in consumer packaged goods.
Thanks. AJ, for your experience with a quantitative process as much as anything, and going through an iterative process, you've got pressure on you in terms of cash. Cash is the lifeblood of startups. You're burning through it. You've got expectations for your investors. You've got a lot of pressure on you. How did you manage that as you were working through the models to understand what it is that you needed to go from a 2 to an 8?
It's amazing how quick and how crafty you can get when cash is tight. You find ingenuity in tough times. What I'd say is that innovation is a very interesting thing, and causing disruption is even harder. And in order for innovation to occur, you really need two things. You need, first, the creation of an innovative product or process or platform. The second, what I find to be harder, but at times more important, is the adoption of said innovation product or process or platform, right? And I think that a lot of times as companies try to start, they focus solely on the creation of some innovation, and they discount or discredit or kind of just push off the adoption piece. And in order to raise money in the way that Sprockets has, and I think in order to truly grow the company, you need facets of both of those pieces. And so I think that's why I approach my product iterations in the way that I do. They're very customer focused, and you can determine before you go out and build that amazing innovative product, you have the adoption piece being considered as you push forward into the future of your company in a very stressful time, right? Like, what causes me stress is I take a gamble on a product that I don't know what will work. I find solace in, I talk to so many customers with some version of a product, and they all tell me, I need this, I need this, I need this. And you talk to enough people, you start to find commonality. You can really solution what they need and articulate a great platform based on that feedback.
And that makes the adoption piece really easy, right? Like, if your customers are telling you, hey, if you build this, I will use it and pay for it, then, hey, let's get to work, because I think that was a really good point about that adoption piece. And a lot of times we build cool stuff and we're not thinking about the adoption piece and how people are going to use it and whether or not they're going to use it, or how easy is it going to be for them to use, or how hard will it be for them to integrate into their platform, or in what they're existing or what they're doing. And so I think you made a really good point about the adoption piece, like really focusing in on that part. And I think that's what hopefully we're trying to do as companies, is listen to enough customers that say like, hey, we want these things, so that the adoption piece becomes really simple.
Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned scope creep. You've got a lot of customers coming at you with additional additions to the product they would like to see. Each one of those is going to cost you money and time to develop. You got to get a product to market. How, for you, I know you went through a journey as you were working through the early stages of your company. How did you get to the point where you identified who the proper customer was, and how did you get to the point where you started to identify what the bundle of features that were appropriate for that customer base was?
I think when you're growing as a company, you get like I think we can't discount like having like a repeatable kind of sales process, like having something that you do that's a process that's repeatable, so that you're approaching the same things the same way all the time, and then you start getting that feedback because you're approaching it that way. You're getting that feedback, and then I think really taking it to like all the features that you build aren't going to be like sexy. They're not going to be like, some stuff is just super practical, and I think we prioritize as a company the practical over the sexy new feature. What practically can we do that our customers are saying, and we're like, hey, that's not a hard ask. Like that's not something crazy to ask for. Like that's actually pretty smart. And so I like to think that our customers sometimes are some of the smartest people in our company. And so that's how we kind of look to prioritize. And when you have a repeatable process that you're doing and you're winning at that repeatable process, I think a lot of times you can make some pretty good inferences from your customers if they're not screaming it to you and telling you to build that next.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that, what you're touching on, is like, should you listen to your customers all the time? And it's a powerful thing to say yes to a customer. It's even more powerful when you say no and you articulate why. And so when I do customer discovery and when we do customer discovery, it has no features attached to it. We don't ask like, hey, would you like if we added to more job boards? Or hey, should we add this screening tool? We ask for data around their staffing. We're like, okay, how many applicants did you get last month? Of those applicants, how many people came in for an interview? Okay, how many people did you hire? How many stayed longer than 90 days? And we use the data and the feedback about their problems to derive meaningful features that can provide them value. We don't ask them for, hey, what's going to make this a better platform, right? And I think that's the magic of product development, is understanding what questions to ask and how to interpret the input that you get from customer sets. Not an easy thing to do, and something that we're constantly thinking about. I'm sure you're thinking about as well. I don't think anybody's mastered that fully yet.
So for both of you, as you're going through this journey of aligning your vision to the customer's requirements, what was the number one largest challenge you came across?
Customers with bad ideas. No, I think that tempering some of the excitement, right? Like, a customer may say something, and we're like, man, that's really smart, and then really being honest with yourself, like, do you have the resources to well? And I think one of the challenges is like the disappointment of not being able to prioritize something that, like, a customer that might have been with you for a while, and like not being able to prioritize something that we're hearing it from a lot of customers, but we can't prioritize that right now. So I think that's one of the challenges. I think, again, the part about your ego, I think that's always the big challenge of, like, when sometimes you have your team has their kind of finger on the market, on the pulse a little bit more, and something new is coming up, everybody is, really excited about, like ChatGPT and like all the benefits of AI and things like that. And then just kind of like, okay, no, we have to, temper our excitement, maintain maintain what we're doing. And I think that those are some of the challenges, is like not stifling innovation within your own company, to go out and give them all the tools and give them all the kind of like pats on the back to say like, yeah, go out and you know, we say this all the time, and like sometimes we do need you just to go try some shit and see if it works. Like, and so being able to, I think that's the biggest challenge, is being able to kind of create a balance between going out there and just, you know, trying some shit and then actually having like a real balance onto what we can actually do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hyper-specific to Sprockets, but it's a change in the condition in which our customers are living. So we're hiring tech, and during COVID, as many of us know, the labor market shifted tremendously. It went from 3% unemployment pre-COVID to 15% unemployment kind of in the height of COVID, back down to about 3.5% where it sits today. And so you have a greater shift than the Great Depression happened twice in a 24-month period. And meanwhile, we got venture dollars coming in, we got growth expectations coming in. It's a very difficult thing to manage, because one solution, although very successful in labor market 1, may not be successful in labor market 2, in 3, and now in 4. And so the biggest challenge that we, I think, faced, and me kind of being head of product, has been knowing what hard times will pass and being able to predict what is going to be the future and when's it going to level out, so you can build the best possible solution for the longest period of time, which is always a very challenging thing to do.
So you've got your minimum viable product, or your first commercial product. You've got a customer segment you've identified. You've got some data indicating that you've aligned with that customer segment. Now the question becomes, now what do I price this thing at? How'd you go through that process?
So my dad, who some of you may know, is a very common sense business person. That's how I describe the way he approaches work. And I'm the opposite. So when I think of pricing strategy, I'm asking everyone I know, I'm doing spreadsheets, I'm doing competitive analysis, and I always get it wrong when I do that. And then my dad comes by and taps me on the shoulder, he goes, AJ, things are worth what people will pay for, like really simply put. And so that's, you know, when our very first version of Sprockets came out, was we threw some pricing models at different customers, saw what had the highest likelihood of success, and that started to double down on things that worked and cut out things that didn't. I wish it was more scientific. I'm a very data-driven person, but I haven't had success in doing that so far.
I think you said something about asking all the people that you knew. I started asking the people I didn't know. Like that was the most important thing for us. Is like when we went out and like we've actually changed our pricing since the last time you've probably seen our deck. We've changed our pricing there, and so we went out and tested it. Like we ran tests. We ran tests. We ran software. We ran A/B tests. Like at this price point, and saw what the market said back to us, and we ran digital ads and strategy at a different price point, and saw what we figured out was that to AJ's point, like, yeah, people were willing to pay, you know, it was priced the mid-tier price for us, but people were willing to pay that. But also when you run SaaS though, you have to be making money overnight. So you have to be making money while you sleep. And so you also need, whether it's free trial or whether it's something, you need something to generate a successful lead funnel for you. But also you need products, and you need a product that people can go on your website, get enough information about it, make a purchase at some level. We do a tier subscription service, so at some level to where you're making money while you sleep, whether it's $50 a month or $750 a month. Like you got to wake up in the morning and the balance sheets have to be changing. And I think that's something very important as you're testing it out. Not just testing out to see what people will pay for it, because there's a lot of customer acquisition cost that comes into that. There's a lot of man hours that go into like the sales side of that, because someone may buy it at $750 a month, but your sales cycle may be 45 days, and that's not going to be sustainable. So it's like finding that right fit of like, what's the price point where you can have a fairly quickly sales cycle and generate revenue that way, and then what's that price point where you put a little bit of effort into it and make sure you can close the sale that way as well.
So I had a business school professor who was a pricing strategist, and he said something that's always stuck with me, which is a successful pricing strategy is one that leaves barely satisfied customers, which is an algorithmic way of doing it. But in terms of, as you're starting to get your product moving from, your beta or your test product that's untested in the market to something that you've got some data around with your customers, how did you handle the communication aspects of this with the environment around you? Did you actively go out and, at some point you're pitching vision because you don't have anything, but now you're starting to get something and you're starting to get an idea where this is going. Did you have a strategy around how you were starting to pitch the company, how you were talking maybe to some investors early stage? Were you standing up at events and starting to do some pitch competitions? How did you highlight what you're doing out in the ecosystem?
For us, it was a combination of both. A combination of a lot of the things that you said. One, we went on the pitch competition circuit, tried to get in front of everybody that we could get in front of. I think it's important to. I think a big thing for us was we were able to work with a lot of other founders and like offer them our product for no cost, but also have them using it so that we could get more data, so we could get more information, so that we could grow our brand and say like, hey, well, now we have 20 customers on the roster, and so I think it's important, one, find yourself in groups where you can network with other founders who may be building things as well, that there could be some synergy around them using your product and you using their product. I think pitch competitions are great. I can't tell you how many tables I've stood at. And when you're working in the hospitality space, and we go to all of the conferences, like High Tech, all the hospitality conferences. The other thing was like we found out the calendar of when, like we unlocked when hotels like to buy technology. And like following that, so we know when to be very intensive, like, hey, we're going all in, we're gonna be emailing, like talking to as many people as we can, because they're gonna make their decisions on tech between February and April, because May, that holiday season starts, like the summer starts. And so by Labor Day, they wanna have everybody trained, they wanna have everybody ready on any new systems. So you have to get all of that work done by May. And so it's a pleasure being here today, but I am leaving I'm leaving soon after, because this is like peak season for us, because we've been following and learning, like, hey, when are these decisions being made? And that's been important.
Yeah, for me, I'm not a very extroverted person when it comes to events. I know there's a lot of really exciting things happening around all of Charleston, and I'd like to get more involved in local tech ecosystem. I like to think that hopefully my contributions to everything that's going on is grow a really great company, teach people who work at the company like how to grow a SaaS business, and they can contribute in the ways that make them feel fulfilled. But I think when we first got started, I was so, and remain to this day, so customer obsessed, in that I knew, like, many of you may have gotten my very first pitch deck or very first email. That was probably exciting. We could try to dig that up. But the first one was just a montage of a bunch of different Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, and like Bojangles owners just talking about Sprockets. No deck, no context, no hi, I'm AJ. It was just, we're Sprockets, and it was a video of them inside of their restaurants. And that led it to what I understand to be conversion rates on like in cold emails to be very high. And we're able to raise some serious capital and build some great relationships just off of that strategy. So it worked for us, and hopefully it can work for others if they adopt it. But that's what I would recommend to other founders for sure.
So who was your first hire and why?
First official hire, well, software developers. That was always. I'm lucky. My co-founder is a software engineer by trade, and he had done it for 20, 25 years. And I could see the burden that we put on him every day to like, hey, we need this. Hey, when is this coming? So strategically, we really thought, the first thing we have to do is get some support for him, because no one is going to buy our product if it doesn't work. So I felt like that was the first strategic hire that we needed. We hired a software developer. And then we also, we found some really good interns.
I went with my dad as my first hire. So he was recently retired, and he was trying to go right off the sunset with my mom on a sailboat. And I said, nope, I need you for one last thing before you disappear forever. I found just really early on that because of his age, because of kind of just the way he spoke, he's very similar in a lot of ways that we're father-son, but different in that I'm very data-driven. He's very people-driven. And he's the best salesperson I know. And so what's really hard I can tell you from experience, is to like walk into a Chick-fil-A as a 20-year-old kid and say, hey, I have the solution to your biggest problem, and it's this software that I built. That doesn't sell. What sells is when he walked in and he'd say, hey, I'm the co-founder of this technology enterprise. We just raised Series B, or Series A, and I've been in your shoes. I've started businesses before, and that sells like hotcakes. And so I knew early on I needed somebody with that personality to help drive customer acquisition for us to really put our foot down and start scaling the company.
So, can I say one thing, though?
Yep, one thing.
I think our most important hire, though, was our customer success manager. And I think that's something that I want to, as we're talking about us, product and scaling and growing, a person who is actually in tune and really wants to talk to customers all the time and be customer obsessed when you have to go do the business side of things, and they can be that sounding board for customers that relates that to product team, to the tech team, to the leadership. And so I think that was probably one of our most important hires, was hiring a rock star at customer success, because they stay ahead of problems for us. They are able to kind of filter through some of the customer noise that we talked about, when customers don't have good ideas, they can filter through some of the noise, and they help us really, and help our tech team really inform what we should be building next too.
So last question. There's a number of answers to this, but I want you to pick the top answer. If you could do it over again, what's the one thing you'd do differently? And I want the number one thing on your list, because I'm sure there's multiple things if I had to guess.
Well, I've said this 100 times. I would take my ego out of, that's the biggest thing. What I would do differently is I would start off and building the things that customers would pay for, instead of starting off building the things that I thought was cool. Because we burned a lot of money. Our first iteration of our product, we took it to college campuses and thought, well, college kids will love to use this, and then we can go and sell it to the businesses around. And it sounded really sound, until I realized that college kids don't do any, they hate apps. They hate, if it's not one of the TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, they're not gonna use it. They were literally downloading our app, getting the free t-shirt, getting the whatever the giveaway was, and we were tracking it in real time as they were deleting it. He literally walked around the corner and deleted the app that we built. So that wasn't what worked. But in my mind, I was like, this is fail proof. This can't fail. So I think that was the biggest thing. Take your ego out of it. Listen to what your customers are saying. Build the things that they need and that they're willing to pay for, and the rest will come.
Yeah, this is tough. I feel like I've made mistakes on my drive here that I'd probably take back. I think it's super cliche answer, but I'll give it anyways. I don't think I'd undo really anything. I think that companies and personal development are born from hard times, and I think especially in product development, you just have to get burned. You have to sell the wrong product at times. The platform has to go down. people have to get missold in order for you to build a truly magnificent platform offering and company. And so I think just as a founder, I mean, many people in this room know, it's just part of the job is enduring pain at every moment.
I think that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about entrepreneurism in the early stage space is there is reward, there is value in failing. I mean, if you're not failing, you're probably not taking enough risk, and that's just part of the model. And I think that evaluating that, thinking that way is just a healthy way to approach this. So.
I wrote a college thesis on this philosopher, and one of the most famous lines was, maturity and growth is learning to suffer elegantly. And I feel that's a lot of product development is suffering elegantly and doing something productive with it, because there's no stopping it, right? You know it's going to happen, and it's about taking it in a positive direction.
And I think every business book I've read starts with the author talking about some failure they've had. So it's a universal theme. I want to thank both of you. I've really enjoyed being up here with you guys, and appreciate you coming out.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
No problem.